Well, I remember at some brief moments where I was trying to get my life back together, which I really wasn't doing. I was trying to find a way to drink and not have problems associated with my drinking.
Yep.
It doesn't work. But she said to me at one point, it doesn't matter what you do, whether you try to get sober, you're off doing whatever, or if you're drinking, you're off doing whatever. And she said, I'm still sitting here by myself. And that was the first inkling that I thought, wow, this is really affecting other people other than just me. So when I put Racing for Recovery together, it was, again, I didn't want to sit around and talk to people about drinking. I already knew that. I wanted to listen to what my choice to drink was doing to my family and my friends and my community. And it's not to beat us up, it's to understand what we're doing that we're not even cognizant of what we're doing. And conversely, I want the families to understand what it's like in our shoes so we both have empathy and understanding and compassion. And then we then can start to rebuild, the hurt from the past and really enjoy the present and prepare for the future. Much.
Welcome to the Sober Edge podcast, inspiration for alcohol-free living. I'm your host, Terry Patterson, functional nutritionist and This Naked Mind senior coach. The Sober Edge is a place to explore the infinite possibilities on the other side of drinking. In a culture soaked in booze, discover the wonder and joy of taking a different path. Meet real people living lives of purpose and passion, learn the truth behind the alcohol myths, and get ready to be motivated, inspired, and astounded by what is possible with the Sober Edge. You're listening to episode 134 of the Sober Edge podcast. So today I get to introduce you to someone who is inspiring both for his athletic accomplishments and his passion for living an addictive-free life. So we sit down in the podcast today with Todd Crandell, who is the founder of Racing for Recovery. And he began this nonprofit in 2001. And it's just amazing to think how much has changed in the sober curious and sober serious landscape in the last 23 years. Todd shares candidly, and you're going to hear his passion for living an alcohol and drug-free life, and also just his passion for living. We have a really fun conversation with some humor thrown in, and you can get to know a little bit about Todd's philosophy and how in 2001, when he started his nonprofit, it was really a leap of faith because there just weren't a lot of options out there. And this online and in-person recovery group has gone on to impact thousands of people. So I want to read his bio, and then we're going to jump right into the episode. Todd Crandell, the original sober triathlete, has dedicated his personal and professional life to helping substance abusers rechannel their destructive behaviors into positive, life-affirming action. In the process of rebuilding his own life, Crandell realized traditional recovery programs weren't always enough to help people refocus their addictive drives into positive actions that break the abuse cycle. Crandell's experiences and inspirational efforts led to the formation of Racing for Recovery in 2001, a nonprofit organization dedicated to helping people from all walks prevent and overcome addiction. A multifaceted empowerment group, Racing for Recovery offers weekly support group meetings that are available to everyone who has been affected by addiction, which includes both the individual who is suffering and their friends and families, along with the public at large. Along the way, Todd has inspired thousands through competing in more than 100, I think he told me he's actually up to 113 Ironman triathlons, and he is the author of 6 books. I know you're going to be inspired by Todd, so I'll see you over in the episode. Well, hey, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Sober Edge podcast. And I am looking at Mr. Todd Crandell, who is the founder of Racing for Recovery. Running.
Racing for Recovery.
Racing, good. I love this idea, Todd, of racing towards something. I think so often in this journey of changing our relationship with alcohol, we think about pushing back. And here, your whole mission is to help people move into this place of accepting and embracing and really thriving without alcohol in our life. So, welcome to the podcast.
Oh, this is going to be awesome. I can tell by your intro that this is right up my alley. I'm excited.
Good. Well, we talked a moment before, and then Todd said, Terry, let's hit record because we're getting all the good stuff in our own personal conversation. And he wants to make sure that you, as the listener, really understand the impact that changing your thoughts around how we, kind of let go of this addiction and the support that you've given. So you have been in this work for a long time. You kind of started this journey in your community in 2001. Is that correct?
That's correct. 2001.
Yeah. And what is your community? Tell our listeners about that.
Well, I was a member of the traditional support group meetings when I first got sober back in 1993, and I give them praise still to this day. I'm grateful I could go there. But there was a couple things that were missing, and one of them you've already alluded to. Traditional support group meetings want to talk about the war stories of the past repeatedly. I am really not interested in how much somebody drank. I am interested in why they were choosing to drink. What's the trauma behind a choice to drink? And that's what I was looking for in treatment. So with forming Racing for Recovery, I wanted to provide clinical, licensed, and educated information that can help people heal from trauma, that not only give them an opportunity to truly shine in recovery, but also include family members in there because they are hurting just as much as those that are suffering from addiction. So that was my concept, to create something original and unique that wasn't out there in 2001, and we're still doing it today.
I love that. I stopped drinking alcohol in 2015. And I feel like even since 2015, the landscape around how we're having this conversation, the shame, blame, the dark stories of being in recovery for the rest of your life, all of that has sort of changed. And I think it's because of people like you who are helping us have a different conversation.
Well, congratulations on your choice to change your life. And we were talking about age, which I'm sure we're going to get into, and you have that vibrant energy that I know I have. And you can tell when you meet somebody that's living like that, it's an instant bond. We're not, as soon as we started talking, we weren't talking about, getting drunk all the time. It's like, how you living? Isn't this great? And that's the focus and the energy that I want to put out to folks that are of our age bracket, if you will.
Yes, absolutely. I love this place of moving into midlife with more energy and vitality than ever before. And for so many of the clients that I work with, letting go of alcohol in their 40s and 50s is a big part of this. We know that as we get older, drinking impacts us more physiologically, but also I was drinking for decades, at first just socially, not really problem. And then I was starting to find that I was drinking more than I wanted to. And then suddenly I was drinking when I didn't want to. And so, by making this change of exploring it from a place of how do I move into more of this beautiful life that is available as opposed to the shame that usually stigmatizes alcohol. I think it's just such a huge shift. And I love that we're able to bring this out into the open.
I concur with that. And if you think about the irony of some of the stuff as a licensed professional counselor, I see it all the time. People are coming in with they're diagnosed with depression, which usually eliminate or alleviates once we stop drinking. But we're battling depression because of traumatic issues. And then we're drinking alcohol, which is a depressant, and expecting to feel better. And it just doesn't work that way. So when you put the alcohol depression down and you pick up exercise, sobriety, and in my case, a plant-based nutritional program, you're going to feel excited and vibrant, which eradicates the depression that so many people are battling.
Yeah, I was just listening to a podcast today with Mel Robbins, who I know a lot of my listeners listen to, and she's been very honest about her own on and off again relationship with alcohol. And she has a Harvard medical doctor who has kind of a unique approach, more aligned with the way we like to talk about alcohol use disorder. And she really does talk about this component of depression. And so many times we are struggling, and we think because of what society and culture tells us that alcohol is going to be that place of relief. And initially, it's very confusing to the brain because it does bring some initial relief. And so what you and I have discovered, and what is so key, is finding those things that are the healthiest way to alleviate that stress, that anxiety, that overwhelm feeling that so many of us have in today's society. So I think that you did it around exercise. So tell us how that sort of showed up in your life and why Racing for Recovery has been such a cornerstone for you.
I appreciate this question. My real mom committed suicide when I was 3 from her drug addiction. My uncle killed himself from addiction, and my aunt killed herself from a food addiction. And I bring that up to make my point now. My dad, he did get remarried when I was 5, and I have a fantastic, I don't like calling her a stepmom, but for all intents and purposes, she is. But we moved into a new housing environment, and all the kids were down on this creek and they were playing hockey, and I didn't know how to skate. But I wanted to, hang out with the neighborhood kids. So I just learned how to skate and started playing hockey. So sports have always been a central point of my life, and my choice to use alcohol, I kind of threw away a potential hockey thing. But in recovery, I found this crazy event called the Ironman triathlon, and I started using that just as a way to occupy my time. And with every step that I was taking, running or biking or swimming, it was not only physically improving myself, but mentally, spiritually, emotionally, psychologically. So it became not a new addiction, but a new focus that was really focusing on just the benefits of physical movement. And Ironman has turned into me forming Racing for Recovery and the extraordinary life that I'm fortunate to lead today.
Yeah, I actually have a mentor. So when I stopped drinking, Todd, I went to nutrition school because I had so much time and energy. And I thought, I've always been a wellness enthusiast. What if I become a wellness professional? And I thought no one would be drinking, but that was a joke. Like, nutritionists are still figuring out that alcohol is not a health food, right? And so I had a mentor in my small town where I live in Northern California who is an Ironman or Iron Woman. I guess you say Ironman, but she just actually raced at Kona, which is like the elite part of the Ironman. And so she has been like, I've just watched her in awe. It's not something I aspire to, but I love what you said about the benefits of finding something that it's not a replacement, it's an enhancement.
Totally great word. And I want to make this, well, first of all, I need to meet your friend because Hawaii is beautiful. I've been out there a number of times. I love it. It sometimes people will look at me and Racing for Recovery and they'll ask me, well, do I have to do an Ironman to be a part of Racing for Recovery? And the answer is no. It's a great marketing tool for me. I love to travel and meeting people. But what we are saying is, as a part of a balanced, holistic lifestyle, exercise of some form at some level and whatever capacity that someone wants to do, that's what we encourage people to do. It's not about how fast you run or how much weight you can lift. It's not about that. It's simply moving. And especially when you get to our age, basic movement is essential for just reducing anxiety, eliminating depression, as we were discussing. Just any type of movement is a beautiful thing.
So tell us a little bit now, because I know that my listeners are going to be curious about your own success and the type of racing that you do and what you've experienced, because you have been more than just an Ironman who ran one race here or there. Tell us what this has looked like in your life.
Physically, I guess I don't want to call them accolades. I've done a few things physically. I've completed 113 Ironman events since 1999. Um, Traveled the world. I've raced on six of the seven continents. They don't have an Ironman in Antarctica yet, so I haven't been down there. But Ironman, like I said, it's given me the opportunity to see things in the world that I never would have seen unless I was looking in a book. I've traveled with my kids. I've traveled with colleagues from Racing for Recovery, and it's a great way to learn about new cultures. It's been a fantastic way for me to learn about myself. I've been able to maintain, I guess, some physical fitness this far in my life, and it's not Ironman and exercise to me are not events. It's a lifestyle that I get to choose to be a part of every day, and I just love how I get to live.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Wow. Six of the seven continents. That's amazing. And how do you do 113? Aren't they like, how many can you do a year?
The past couple years, I've done 11 each year in of itself. I think if I don't even know what that equates to a year with 113 of them over a quarter of a century, but it's if I try to kind of minimize some stuff, so I look at it as, oh, it's only 11 days out of 365 that I did one of those. So I love it. When I finished, this is relative, on my mom's 53rd anniversary of her suicide, I did my 111th Ironman in New York in a tropical storm. And that was a bit of an experience, but it concluded my picture book that came out this past December. I I can't say enough about what I've been fortunate enough to do, and I thank God that I have a body that can still do this crazy stuff.
Yeah, it's so cool when we love what we do and we use it and it inspires us and inspires others. And that is just that beautiful confluence of opportunity that happens when we stop using things like drugs and alcohol to buffer our real life. I noticed I stopped drinking at 55 and my life, people say, well, your life doesn't really change when you stop drinking, but that's not been my experience at all. My life looks so different and mostly from the inside out.
Well, and you're validating what I'm talking about. A lot of times, if you see somebody who's miserable in sobriety, to me, it's a sign that they really haven't healed from the stuff that caused them to drink in the first place. And that's what's preventing them to look and act and talk the way that you and I are right now. We have to fully understand why we were drinking to that level and then start to implement this new lifestyle that we get up with excitement every day and are blessed to go out there and just do it. I mean, who wouldn't want to be happy living the way we are right now, right?
Exactly. And it's so important that you talk about healing from trauma. I mean, whether people feel like they've had huge traumatic events in their life or what we might call a big T, little t trauma, all of us struggle with some of the basic things that come with being a human, and that is self-doubt, that is feeling maybe that we are not enough or we're too much. And some of these things are the way that alcohol just starts to get a grasp on us. Maybe we use alcohol to fit in. Maybe we use alcohol to overcome social anxiety. Maybe we use alcohol to calm down. And so, what you're sharing there, Todd, I think is so powerful is that there are reasons underneath why we drink. I mean, really, I always talk to people about alcohol is the symptom of what, we're using alcohol because in many ways, the way I talk about it now is it has shown up as sort of a form of self-care.
we're self-medicating, we're trying to take care of ourselves, we're doing the best we can. We need better tools. And so when people come into your center, do you sort of have a treatment plan that starts with kind of addiction counseling? How does that look?
100%. And everything you said that we're doing using alcohol for in addiction, we definitely can switch those same things and turning them into assets that we can utilize to sustain sobriety and actually enjoy it. So when someone comes into Racing for Recovery, everybody here is licensed on some level, and we assess them. We assess mental health issues, and we assess the level of alcohol and drug usage. Once those diagnoses are put into play, then the program is set up with group counseling, individual counseling, family counseling, support group meetings. And then we educate people again on the impact of trauma, and trauma is all relative to the individual. And then simultaneously, we're helping people build this balanced, holistic lifestyle physically, spiritually, intellectually, emotionally, psychologically, creatively. How can people who once had a passion for playing music, who may have sold their guitar for drugs or alcohol, can now pick up an instrument again and refine themselves through music? So we do not sit around again, talk about the war stories. We talk about the emotions behind the war stories. And then we really start living some new emotions in recovery that are all positive.
I love that. And talking about it emotionally, spiritually, creatively. And, because people might look at something like Racing for Recovery and think, well, it's all about the physical aspect, but that's not true. It is this holistic approach. And that is what I have found has been so key in living a life that I don't want to escape from versus I think when I taught, and maybe some of your clients experienced this too, but I think I thought giving up alcohol was going to be a life of misery, that I was going to be trapped in this recovery cycle for the rest of my life. And I really have found that my life feels liberated from alcohol, not fixated on recovery.
I love your mindset. And if you've noticed, and I hope your listeners will as thus far, we've not mentioned us as ourselves as alcoholics. That's another thing that I do not believe in. We don't talk about that here at Racing for Recovery. You don't have to label yourself as such. Once you quit drinking, you're not an alcoholic anymore. That's something you did in your past. Now you're Terry and Steve and Tom, and you're a person who is now thriving in recovery. And that's a big difference. A lot of people think that sobriety is, I quit drinking, I'm miserable, and that's how my life's going to be. Or they think, oh, I quit drinking and automatically my life is going to be better. That's not so much the case either. If you look at a pizza, quitting drinking is one piece of it, but there's many other components of that pizza that make up a solid whole pizza. You know what I'm saying? And that's what Racing for Recovery does.
Yeah, that's so beautiful. Thank you for that. So I have a question. What have you noticed has really changed in the landscape since this conception of Racing for Recovery in 2001? We're 23 years later. I feel like we are at the cusp of really changing this conversation. So what has that sort of journey looked like for your center?
It's been an interesting, turbulent, exciting, difficult, awesome journey. And we're kind of talking about it already. If you think about treatment, if you say to somebody, well, how does someone get off of alcohol? They say, well, they go to detox and then they go to some meetings. And that's a start of it. But we're still operating, unfortunately, on this concept from 1933, which isn't a bad concept again, but things change, things evolve. And people are now starting to come around, even with Racing for Recovery starting back in 2001. I start seeing these other names of things that kind of resemble Racing for Recovery, and they're doing some things that we're doing, which is all great. It's nice to be emulated. But for me, I really want to see the focus being changed from, well, you're powerless and you just need to quit drinking, to really looking at, no, I need some psychological and emotional help as to why I'm drinking over my trauma, and get some clinical help with that, that then allows people to truly shine in their recovery. And that's what we're slowly starting to see. And I hope someday the way that Racing for Recovery treats people is the way the world sees it.
Oh, yes. Amen. I agree. Won't that be an amazing, amazing opportunity when we change that conversation? Culturally, we're starting to see, well, and here's the thing. I know that I look at the world in a sober bubble. It feels like everybody's having this conversation because that's what I'm focusing on, but I realize so much of the world is still structured around alcohol has, benefits. Alcohol shows up everywhere. If I stop drinking, I'll be a social pariah. And so those things are still out there. And so I'm curious about family support. Like, how has this new concept of supporting the individual and not shaming them, or not caught in this place where labeling people as an alcoholic, or even tough love, what's changed in that landscape, Todd?
Well, I have to give credit where credit is due, and it's actually to a former girlfriend that I had years ago. I remember at some brief moments where I was trying to get my life back together, which I really wasn't doing. I was trying to find a way to drink and not have problems associated with my drinking.
Yep.
It doesn't work. But she said to me at one point, it doesn't matter what you do, whether you try to get sober, you're off doing whatever, or if you're drinking, you're off doing whatever. And she said, I'm still sitting here by myself. And that was the first inkling that I thought, wow, this is really affecting other people other than just me. So when I put Racing for Recovery together, it was, again, I didn't want to sit around and talk to people about drinking. I already knew that. I wanted to listen to what my choice to drink was doing to my family and my friends and my community. And it's not to beat us up, it's to understand what we're doing, that we're not even cognizant of what we're doing. And conversely, I want the families to understand what it's like in our shoes, so we both have empathy and understanding and compassion. And then we then can start to rebuild, the hurt from the past, and really enjoy the present and prepare for the future.
It's such a big part of it. Yeah. Understanding that when alcohol shows up as a problem, it's not just affecting the individual. In my own in my own journey, and I've shared this a lot, but it was fascinating to me. My own mother said, "Well, I don't understand why you stopped drinking. It's not a problem. You don't have a drinking problem." And it was like, yeah, but it's a problem for me. Like, I'm noticing that checking out every night. I'm not communicating with my spouse, all the issues that would come up in our marriage, I'd just drink at them. And, that's really a powerful place to recognize, like, our opportunity to connect with people in a new way and to deepen those relationships from a real authentic place changes so much when alcohol is out of the picture.
Well, you brought up your husband, and I'm interested. Has he talked about what it was like on his side of the street while you were coming into your new way of living?
Well, it's an interesting journey because what happened was I stopped drinking, and then 2 years later, he stopped drinking. So we were both drinking together, a lot. And what was interesting was I was very angry when I stopped drinking. Like, all of those emotions that come up, I was like trigger angry. And I remember him telling me, like, "You are angry all the time." And I was like, "No, I'm not." And then I was like, "Oh, actually, there's a lot of emotions that are bubbling up." And we had to navigate that. And we also had to take a look at the ways we had been avoiding hard conversations by just drinking and pretending nothing happened, or checking out, or sometimes even at the end of my drinking, not being able to remember why we were fighting in the first place. And so there was a lot of that came up around our relationship. And what I have discovered is that when I was trusting myself more and I was open to having harder conversations, that made a huge difference in us being able to connect. So I would say that the best parts of our relationship are back in the forefront again. But there was, a 10, 15-year period where and frankly, Todd, when I stopped drinking, I didn't know if our marriage would survive. I couldn't predict how he would respond. But one thing, to answer your question, one thing I did do was I recognized that when we grow as individuals in positive ways, we start, having more interests outside of maybe just the marriage. And we start to explore growing and feeling good and connecting in new ways with lots of different experiences. It might feel threatening to our spouse. They might think, oh, this person is growing and they're going to leave me. And so I remember consciously thinking that I should tell him, and I say this to my clients sometimes, if you are not making an exit plan, you can share that with your spouse and say, hey, I don't know, there's lots of things happening, but I'm not changing so that I can leave you. And I think that was a turning point in our marriage as well.
That's beautiful. And look, and it's a theme with anything you want to do in life. If you want to be successful in sobriety or business or physical fitness, it takes work. It takes gut wrenching, consistent, persevering, all those good, powerful words. That's the reality of anybody that's, quote, successful. It takes a lot of work. And we also have to look at our own involvement as to why it's not working. And those are some conversations that people don't want to have. And that's why they're still miserable and not, unfortunately, doing what they really deserve to be doing.
Yeah. And so I'm curious about your own. Were you married? What did you get married when you were already in recovery and doing Ironman and all of that?
I met my well, I this is what it is. I met my ex-wife about a year and a half into sobriety, and we were married for 27 years, and we just got divorced this past November.
Mm.
And I will say this, my role and um, my responsibility in acknowledging that was a lot of unresolved trauma in my own life, because I want the folks to listen to this. When I started Racing for Recovery, this was an innovative approach, and it was based on what I didn't get that I needed. So yes, I went back and got a master's degree, and I'm licensed in a couple of different levels, but I really was lacking the help that I now am fortunate enough to give to others. So that caused some issues in my marriage, and also the fact that I gave up a lucrative pharmaceutical sales job. People can laugh at irony in that. But I just changed complete focus of the business world to the nonprofit world, which caused a lot of financial stress on our family and stuff. So there was a myriad of reasons that the marriage dissolved. But the one thing that stayed true, and that's I remained true to myself and my life's purpose with Racing for Recovery. And I'm proud of that.
Thank you for sharing that. It's super vulnerable to just talk about what is. So thank you for that. And yeah, I think it's really interesting that in life we don't get a lot of what I used to work in the education field, so we would call soft skills,
Yeah.
like how to communicate effectively, how to hold space for people, how to listen instead of just talking, how to ask for what we need, how to do work on yourself so that you can show up as a better partner, parent, employee, business owner, etc. And when we come out of alcohol use disorder or addiction, we've got this opportunity to work on these things that maybe we've been sort of bypassing our whole life, and we've been taking the shortcuts to, like, my husband and I, like, we're not going to talk about that. We're just going to pretend it didn't happen. Like that, there comes a lot of dysfunction for that. And so, like you said, there's a lot of work around healing from within. And we're also now doing life with someone else who has their own set of emotional places where life gets in the way. And then you throw kids in the mix. And so it's a wonder any of us stay in a strong, healthy marriage over the long term. It does take a lot of work and intention. And I feel very blessed and fortunate to still be with my partner. But like I said, it wasn't a foregone conclusion. There was a lot of things that had to change and a lot of internal work to create the opportunity for us to be in this place where we are.
One of the things when I was listening to you, I was thinking, God gave us 2 ears and only one mouth. And go back and watch this. Not one time have either I or you interrupted the other when we're speaking, because we're good listeners. And it's you listen first, not always to respond, but to understand. And we were talking about communication, all these simple things that people don't realize how valuable they are, but how good are we at communicating when we go to a restaurant? It's detailed. I want this with this on it, this on the side. And we're communicating very well. But in a marriage, when it's the most important thing we need to communicate on, sadly, a lot of us aren't communicating at all. So if you put that metaphorically into a restaurant, if you don't communicate what you want, you're going to starve. But we're not equating to how important that is with the things that really matter.
Yeah. And I sometimes will talk about it in terms of like permission, like giving ourselves, and particularly for women, we've been taught to be seen and not heard. We've been taught that our voice doesn't matter. We've been taught that if you're too aggressive in asking for what you want, you'll be called the B word. And so there's a lot of layers here. And we don't really have an opportunity to do this work when we're checking out every night with alcohol. And so, or every day with alcohol. And so this is powerful work that is going to bubble up throughout our journey. And I would guess, Todd, that you, like me, are continuing to evolve.
Oh, that somebody asked me once, well, they made a statement. Well, you seem to have it all figured out. And I'm like, no, I believe when we die of natural causes, because there's a lot of people that suffer from suicide and self-harm. And I'm certainly one of those as well. When I die of natural causes, then I've fixed myself and I'm cured. Until then, it's just a never-ending journey of self-betterment and an opportunity to learn and improve as an individual. And that to me is really what true sobriety is. It's learning about ourselves. It's admitting our faults. It's being willing to learn, willing to listen first, understand before being understood, and then just going out there and living life to the fullest every single day, because we don't know if it's going to be our last.
Yeah, yeah. And so I want to pivot a little bit because you have written 6 different books. So, and you said you've got an idea for a 7th. So tell us a little bit about your journey as an author and what these books bring to your own, to your business, your center, and then also to the passion that you feel for reaching others in this place.
We have a slogan at Racing for Recovery called "With sobriety, anything is possible." And the fact that I'm a 6-time author is clearly an illustration of that. I didn't even like to read when I was a kid, let alone writing 6 books. And I didn't have a plan to write 6 books. I didn't even think of writing my first book until 2005. So I don't even know what that is, 12 years into sobriety or whatever. But people said, you should write a book. And then I started thinking about it and wrote my first book, which was basically, here's my story of drinking. And then I started doing Ironman and I formed Racing for Recovery. Well, when the first one came out, then people started asking, well, how did you do this? So then I wrote our second book, There's More Than One Way to Get to Cleveland. which was more clinical. And then it focused on 10 success stories that were in Racing for Recovery. I wanted to showcase how they did it in addition to how I did it. And these follow-up books have just been things that have been asked of me or that I've seen or that I thought of that I'm like, well, this could be one and this could be one. And here I am about to release my sixth book on my 31st sobriety date, which is April 15th, and a plan to write a seventh one. And who knows what'll happen from there. But my point is, again, these are things that I never thought I would be doing, certainly in addiction or in early recovery, that here we are talking about it, that hopefully somebody can benefit from it.
Yeah, I agree. I like to say sobriety is my superpower. And I really do believe that because I always sort of had a passion for learning. And like I said, I was a wellness enthusiast, but to become a full-time alcohol freedom coach and a nutritionist and to have a podcast, like, who would have thought that? I certainly didn't. And I think there's two things that come to mind. One is that I never dreamed it, but I also think that that isn't 100% true because I think we visualize it, we see it, we taste that opportunity, and we move forward with intention. And that's where the magic happens.
I love this. Two things. I do want to show this book. This is my fourth book. It's called Do No Harm, and that's a picture of my pet pig, Milo. I'm bringing this up because that pig has taught me more about myself and humanity and the education that people need to understand about the benefits of plants than I ever thought possible. And it came from a creature that can't even talk. And even writing that, it led me to writing my latest book, which was more of an understanding of self and having a vision of not only being sober, but fulfilling life's purpose. And that is in my work of Racing for Recovery, and just writing a book that's kind of like a how-to manual of taking your dreams and hopes and actually making them come into reality, not only for self, but for the betterment of other people. Just like your podcast. It's all relative, right? What everybody's doing.
Well, what I think is so powerful about what you just shared is I asked you a little bit about the evolution of your business and the evolution of you as an Ironman. But if we look at what I think is the core part of this alcohol-free living is that we continue to evolve. So just like your book, you started with telling your story, like that happens with everyone in the beginning. And now you've moved through how your life has changed, how you've inspired others to actually sharing the wisdom that comes from living in this place and understanding how we are continuing to be a work in progress. We're continuing to grow and evolve and share in so many new ways. And to me, that's the most exciting part of this. Like you and I talked to circle back to this midlife place. We have this opportunity to take the wisdom that we've accumulated from our entire life and pass that on in ways that are, I'm really all about this new idea. It's not a new idea, but for me, what's bubbling up is the opportunity to say, I'm not out to pasture at this age. I'm actually moving into a new opportunity to share in ways that are just as impactful as somebody in their 40s who's building a big, thriving business. We have so many opportunities as I follow this man named Chip Conley who has Modern Elder Academy. And I think it's the most beautiful thing to think about us as elders, how we can share part of this journey, not to tell people how to do it, but to open up their own inner possibility.
You were talking about, just being at our age, you get to be the more of a teacher. And I still run our clinical groups every day out here. And I was running one this morning, and I thanked the people that are coming here for services. I don't refer to people as clients. I refer to them as souls, actually. But I thank the group for just allowing me the opportunity to share not stories of addiction again, but experience that have been life-changing for me that now that I hope others can reap the benefits of. Yes, I know what I've accomplished in my recovery, but I really enjoy when I can see that someone has come into Racing for Recovery and getting help. I love sharing their success with other people. That's the true thrill that I get to experience every day here now.
Mm. Well, yes. And as you mentioned in one of your books, you highlight people's success stories. I know that's a part of your website as well. It's so valuable because someone may not resonate with you as an Ironman, but they might connect with a young mom or, who's become a better parent. And so the stories of all of us are such an important part of being able to see this as a possibility.
Well, and that's again when we have the Racing for Recovery live stream support group meeting every Thursday night. People can come to our YouTube page or our Facebook page for free around the globe and hear the success of other people, your other moms, other dads, family members. It's free education for everybody who's been affected by addiction. And that's the stuff that's why I started this. I started this just simply to give it back and help other people learn from it. I know my story with Ironman is a great marketing tool, but the true story is the success of other people here, including our amazing staff.
Mm, Thank you for sharing that because you and I talked. I asked if you had resources for people. So I want to get to that at the very end. But one more question I have for you. What's next for Todd?
What's next for me is I have a business meeting in about 10 minutes about partnering with another detox center who kind of has the holistic approach to sobriety and at hand. I'm really looking forward to that. Actually, I've gotten reconnected with a former friend from high school who knew me way back when. So that's kind of nice. I'm getting ready to do Ironman Dominican Republic at the end of April. Just became a grandfather and I just look for continued, you know, the journey of self-betterment. It just never ends. It's one cool thing after the other.
Well, congratulations on becoming a grandparent. That is one of the joys of life that really does bring so much pleasure. I have three, and yeah, it really is amazing to have another opportunity to interact with a child in a completely different way. Like we show up differently, I've found, as grandparents than we did as parents. There's a lot less pressure to perform and a lot less of the other things in life getting in the way. So I think you're going to really enjoy this next phase. It's amazing.
And you get to give them back, right?
Yep. Yes, we have a special needs grandson and his mom is single. And so he and mama live with us. So sometimes the giving back doesn't happen all the time, but definitely, sometimes the term that it takes a village when we have someone who is uniquely abled is really a true story. So that's part of what I get to show up and be a better grandma without alcohol in my life for sure.
But what a segue. Can you imagine still drinking and trying to do that difficult life situation? It's such a gift to self and to our family and friends to simply make a choice to stop drinking. It's not that hard. There is difficulty in sustaining sobriety at times. I understand that. I've never thought about drinking in close to 31 years, but life gets hard. But we don't have to make a choice to use drugs or alcohol as a coping skill. That's for sure.
I love that you said that, Todd, because I too, when I stopped drinking, I never drank. I've never drank again. And my intention is never to drink again. I have no desire. There's no fixation on drinking or not drinking. In fact, if I didn't do this work, I don't know if I would talk about it at all because it's just not a part of my life. And so I think it's important to highlight that those of you that might be considering what this journey looks like, it's not a life sentence to having an ongoing relationship with alcohol. Like, I don't have any relationship with alcohol. It's not in my life. I sometimes will say that, I used to be 15. That was my identity when I was 15. I can kind of remember what it was like being 15, but I don't want to be 15 again. I don't act 15. I'm not making it wrong that I was 15. It just is, and it no longer is. And so I think it's so powerful to remind people that it might look very different than you're imagining. The horror stories we're telling our own brain are not all true, right?
Beautiful. So true. Absolutely.
Yeah. So tell us, I know you have a meeting to go to. How exciting. So let us know where people can connect with you, find out more about your books and Racing for Recovery.
We're all over social media, Racing for Recovery. Look us up that way. If you want to find me on Instagram, I'm Sober Ultraman on Instagram. I do say this with every interview I do. I answer my own messages. I don't have someone pretending to be me on there. All kidding aside, if you need help or you have a question for me, just please message me and you will hear from me personally. And I will get back to you for sure. If you need clinical services or recovery housing, get a hold of Racing for Recovery. It doesn't matter where you are in the world, and we will do our best to serve you to live the life that you and I are both blessed to live.
That's amazing. Yeah, what an incredible resource you've created. Thank you so much for spending this time with us, and thank you for the work you do in the world.
It's a pleasure, Terry. It's kind of weird for me to say this, but I'm proud of your recovery and I'm thankful for what you're doing for people. Thank you very much.
I want to thank you for tuning in to the Sober Edge podcast. This is a place for important conversations and a safe place to question everything you thought you knew about drinking. If you're looking for your sober edge, I want to invite you to connect with me at thesobernutritionist.com, where you can grab my free resource, Becoming More, a guide to loving your sober life. And I would be so grateful if you enjoyed this podcast, if you would leave a rating and review, as it will help more people find their sober edge.